This isn't therapy, it's a reckoning for the men who've been lied to about love and the women who've been sold safety instead of truth. This is where we say the things you're not supposed to say out loud. And on record, I am author and this is Cuffed. Most people know exactly who they are. They just don't live like it. That's not an awareness problem. That's an honesty problem. And honesty, real honesty, the kind that doesn't negotiate with comfort, requires something most people have never been asked to do. Tell the truth to the only person you can't lie to forever. Yourself. I'm author. This is Cuffed. 2 musings, 20 minutes. And before we get into it, one little cool piece of whatever you want to call it. The Red Room album will go wide on Tuesday. That means it'll be on Spotify, Apple Music, etc. The lossless version, all 613 megabytes, is available on shop.cuffedmedia.com. Appreciate those of you who have already bought it and the feedback. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop 2 tracks at the end of the podcast for you to hopefully enjoy. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback on it. Anyway, let's get into it. This podcast episode is going to cover musings 103 and musing 104, self-honesty and internal congruence. 2 principles or perfectly with one another. If you think about it in terms of self-honesty is observation, internal congruence is the action, is everything coming together to become one, right? And as I wrote in musing 103, I have always been very honest with myself internally. I have no problem telling myself when I've screwed up, when I've come up short, whatever it might be. My issue has been more in being honest with other people. And I've done enough work where I know exactly where my struggle comes from. And at first when I started the work, I literally just thought that I was avoiding confrontation. But the more I worked on it and the more I drilled into it, I realized that it wasn't just the confrontation. I can deal with confrontation. What I don't like to deal with is when you have a confrontation, and when I say confrontation, I don't want you to think that, it's fist fighting or yelling or screaming. Confrontation can just be an ugly subject to tackle with someone. And I would normally not have a problem doing that. What I don't like and what I don't want to have to deal with is having to deal with someone else's emotions as well as my own. What has dawned on me as I've been working through this is I think this says a lot about the people I've allowed into my life. I'm starting to think that maybe I haven't allowed the best people in my life. Because emotionally, people who have emotional regulation, yes, they can lash out and not have great moments, but for the most part, they're emotionally regulated and they don't dump everything on you. And so I'm starting really to question my choices of relationships, friendships, family, etc. The whole kit and caboodle. And you know what? I hope people aren't getting tired of me analyzing my implosion with Tabitha, but my best example of where being honest with myself and not being honest with someone else has costed me the most was in my relationship with her. I was brutally honest with myself at the time about what was going on in my life. The problem with it is I didn't tell her, I didn't let her in. And it wasn't that I lied to her outright. These were more lies by omission. But how can you build intimacy with someone on lies by omission because they're not getting the full person? And that was my fear, is that if she saw all of the other things going on, that she would leave. Which, as I've discussed in previous podcast episodes, she did leave. So my whole plan was beyond idiotic. But what I'm starting to realize is self-honesty is nothing more than observation. You're a spectator. But there's no action. And action is really where the change happens. But you can't be two people. You can't be honest with yourself or honest with other people, and then dishonest with yourself or dishonest with other people, because now you're two people. And I can tell you this from experience. It's fucking exhausting. Completely fucking exhausting. There were times where I was with Tabitha and things were so heavy internally, either because of something going on with the business litigation or things I was dealing with my daughter's health or some other thing. And thinking back, it would have been so much better and felt so great to tell her and talk about it and work through it with her. But I was too afraid. And I don't know why I wanted her to believe that I had everything figured out and everything was perfect. Which is something that still somewhat scares me, is why I can't put my finger on why I wanted to create this false sense of perfection, because looking back now, I realize that she knew things weren't perfect. For God's sakes, we were fucking ambushed by my ex's friends in public. She knew shit wasn't perfect. But yeah, that was a huge mistake. But not a mistake. learning experience because I have learned so much from all of this shit. So, thank you, Tabitha. Okay, now let's move on to internal congruence because this is where things get interesting and difficult, to be honest with you. Because I'm finding this extremely difficult to work through. Let's start with what I'm finding difficult because I have a feeling many of you might feel the same way. I have fallen into the trap of being honest with myself and then patting myself on the back. Okay, you were honest about it. Great. Now we're doing the work. Great job. Wrong. Saying and identifying something is not the same as living it. And I'm going to be honest. I have done this a lot. I have not been congruent in things I have said and believed in, and those becoming my behavior. Let's start with simple things. Since we are on the honesty part first, I've told my children, hey, you need to be honest with other people. You need to be honest with yourself. And here I am, not being honest with other people. I have, with my diet and exercise, I want to be healthy. I want to feel good. I want to look good. Have I done everything that I should? No. And so I have failed myself. But to be honest with you, up until this point, I have never really, truly examined internal congruence. And I'm sad I haven't, because I'm starting to realize that all of the other stuff is great. Awareness, yes, you need awareness first, because if you're not aware, you don't see anything. Okay, you become self-aware, you start to see things. Self-honesty is important, because you could see things and you could deflect them. Self-honesty is when you finally start to admit those things. But that only takes you roughly halfway there. Seeing and saying it are great, but unless you incorporate that into yourself and your behaviors and the way you live match what you see and what you admit, it doesn't matter. You can see everything clearly, you can admit it without flinching. But that's like saying, oh yeah, I'm a liar, but I'm not going to change it. What good is that? It's nothing more than an intellectual exercise at that point. And that is what internal congruence is really the be-all, end-all. That's where change starts to take root and become a part of the self. And let's be honest about internal congruence. If you can't keep your word to yourself and believe that what you tell yourself is how you're going to live. How can anyone else trust what you say if you don't do it? That creates a massive debt. Your life becomes nothing but a walking hypocrisy. You're going to become known as the person who has it all figured out, but your life is a fucking mess. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be that person. I feel like we've all known people like this. They come off as know-it-alls, right? These are the people that know everything, but then when you look at how they act, then you look at their life, you think to yourself, I don't want to be anything like this person. They seem to have it all figured out, but they clearly don't. And I've never thought about it in that sense. About why it seems so often what the issue is, until we started doing this Architecture of Self series. And then I saw it clearly. And to be completely honest, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that man. I don't want to be the person who, yes, can see things and admit them, but my life doesn't reflect those things. That's a huge problem. And I deserve better than that from myself. I shouldn't just see what is best for myself and admit that what I'm doing isn't living up to that. But more importantly, I should live that way. I should keep that commitment to myself. Because again, if I can't keep a commitment to myself, who the fuck can I keep a commitment to? Who can legitimately rely upon me if I can't rely upon myself? So now you can start to see where the real issue becomes and why the relationship we have with ourselves is so important, and furthermore, why every other relationship is built on the foundation of the relationship with ourselves. If the foundation is the relationship with ourselves, and that relationship isn't structurally sound, how are we going to build anything else on top of it? And now I really get when I've heard that line, and I'm sure most of you have heard it too, about if you can't make yourself happy, you're not going to be able to make someone else happy. If you're not happy with yourself, someone else can't make you happy. And that's where, in the end, this all comes to, is the relationship with ourselves is by far the most important relationship we will ever have in our lives. That's the episode for today. I hope you enjoy the tracks after this episode. Hold the standard. Stay close.